All right, let's do part 2 in this Joseki for Kyus little mini-series. In the last video, we showed you this formation, which is, again, very, very common in every, single-digit or higher level queue, or I guess you want to say lower level queue, which is better than... That makes no sense. Anyway, I know. Our Don player knows these pretty well. Most Q players don't, so I thought I would spend a whole video just talking about this formation. Today I want to answer a question that someone on my channel had asked me. Basically, what is the Small Avalanche? And the Avalanche is, at least, well, both of them basically, but especially the large, but also the small, is some of the most confusing mystical Joseki patterns that any Q player will come across in normal play and just be completely overwhelmed by. So here, let's try to break down the Small Avalanche a little bit today and show you some of the common pitfalls and what the basic ideas behind it is. These 7 moves, this forms the basic Small Avalanche pattern. And I think it's called the Small Avalanche, and this is a translation from the Japanese, that it's like layers of earth and snow sort of, rolling across each other. So just sort of like rolling down a hill kind of idea, as you can see where it leaves all these cuts and things. The other reason why I kind of think of it as an avalanche, in the main line, at least this is for me, I don't think this is accurate at all, but the reason it kind of stuck with me when I first learned it is that in the main variation, it seems like black is going to get one side and white's going to get the other side, and all of a sudden the whole thing just collapses and everybody flips over, and just like an avalanche would just gloss right over everything in its path and just, move a bunch of earth from over here to over here. It's very strange. But it is complicated and it is tough, and there are a lot of variations that we're not going to have time to cover here, nor do I know all of them, quite honestly, and know them very well. And the other thing that's really, really dangerous about the avalanche, especially the Small Avalanche in these variations, is that if there are any stones on the outside, just pick up any stones for either player and put them within a 4-space radius around this thing. Oh man, it gets much more difficult and much more painful. So to read out as well as deal with, because the fighting really is nail-bitingly close, and accuracy of reading is required. And these stones around it, even a few spaces away, actually have a pretty dramatic effect on the reading and how these variations work. So anyway, we're going to start and hopefully try to focus on just what happens in an empty corner. But even with this just pure empty corner, the ladder still makes a huge difference in these patterns as well. So, we can't even just pretend that the go board is completely empty when we talk about the avalanche, because, again, like I said, any stones, in this neighborhood or this neighborhood and this neighborhood all have an effect on how this Joseki plays out. So, you guys ready to be confused? Let's do it. And let's go back just to the basic pattern, how you get in the avalanche, because you're going to see it actually evolves quite naturally in games. And for some reason, too, like a lot of the games I've played recently, I've had to play out Small Avalanche variations, and I don't know why. Like, I don't know if it just come back in style, or if I don't know, some pro has explored a bunch of new variations in it recently that people are hearing about, and I just haven't. But I don't know. It just seems like in the last, even a couple months, I've seen it played out more than I should. But who knows? It just might be just the players I'm playing with too, just something. All right, so normally, if black just wants the corner, black makes this attachment. This is very normal Joseki. And normal is something like this. This would be like super normal Joseki. Black gets the corner, white gets the outside. However, when, for whatever reason, white is unhappy with making a base here or building this as influence, and or wants to actually build influence on the side rather than the top, white will choose this variation. And this is the start of both the large and small avalanche, although there are ways to get out of them at this point. Black's next move is fairly obvious. Black keeps sliding down the avalanche hill here. And at this point, I think there's no less than 5 quote-unquote standard even Joseki moves for black, depending on the situation. The one we're primarily going to focus on today, of course, is the small avalanche proper, which is here. But please keep in mind, black can also play here. Black can play here and invite the large avalanche. Black can play here, and black can play here. Is that 5? I wasn't really counting. I should pay more attention to myself when I'm speaking. So anyway, those are all also interesting and crazy and sometimes crazy variations. Although the craziest, of course, is the large avalanche. Most of these other ones actually basically simplify pretty quickly. Like if black just connects here, that simplifies it tremendously. Black can either Hane here or take the extension, depending on whichever side he wants. This is kind of similar, although white's next move is usually here, and black is a lot less tempted to jump here because of this defect. So it just depends on the individual shape. But anyway, what do you want to play? The bloody, the crazy, the thing that just terrifies Kyus in their shoes, which is the Small Avalanche here. And white accepts the Small Avalanche by playing here, which is pretty... Does white have any choices? I think... Yeah, white could play this, but this is a really cop-out chicken kind of variation. It's actually not as good of shape for white as it looks. Black could also be greedier here, but this shape actually can be annoyed quite a bit. And actually, black, I think, could even annoy it immediately. So this is usually not the case when black Hanes. When black plays the large avalanche, this is a little bit more acceptable for white. Because black has a harder time attacking this now without this Hane being already in place. Okay, sorry, I keep getting distracted. I'm going to get distracted a lot during the avalanche video, because there are problems. All right, anyway, this is the Small Avalanche proper line here. That is, I don't want to say it's terrifying the first time you see it, but it's going to hurt your brain a little bit, because we're going to have to give up both players are going to give up some stones in order to get an even result here. And stones that you think would normally be really important stones too. Black does descend here, of course. And the next move for white, the one that, if you don't know this, you will not get a good result. You basically have to play here, right now, immediately. This is the only way to get a good result from this shape. Basically, if this stone dies without putting up much of a fight, black's just going to get way too much. So we have to give this more liberties. This also has the nice effect of threatening to come down here and capture these two black stones. And it also has the nice effect of cutting here and capturing these two stones. So this one stone gives us more liberties, it buys us time, and it threatens to capture, let me use my little triangle tool, either these two stones or these two stones, sort of indirectly. It's not super clean on either one of them, but it certainly starts the sequence. All right, most proper move for black is here. I think, I might be remembering this incorrectly, but I think, like, 50, 60 years ago, a lot of players were experimenting with moves like this first, but I don't think this gets played ever anymore. Someone who has good, like, old Joseki books or something can probably look this up and see if this is still a thing. But either way, I don't think I've ever seen this move in a modern game. This is pretty much the only move from this point for black. All right, now, there's a big choice here for white. We'll show you both moves, but then we're going to focus on one, and we'll come back to the other if we deem you guys mentally stable enough after seeing just the mainline variation. The correct normal response for white is here. This is especially important if white doesn't have the ladder. If white does have the ladder, white can actually play here and provoke a tough fight. And this is a fight that will just ruin the next 50 moves of the game. Like, we're just going to be fighting for the next 50 moves. Because black's going to end up with a weak group, and white will end up with a weak group right here in the middle of the board. And they're both just going to be running and pressuring each other. So, often this is a move that we see when white has the ladder and white has some reason to fight, i.e., or e.g., I guess technically, whoops, let's put a black move here. White has some sort of outside influence, anywhere in this neighborhood. Right, white has anything here, this fight's going to go very well for white. If white doesn't have outside influence, we have to play here. Okay, at this point, basically there's one move for black. Black has to take this Atari. And white absolutely cannot play this move. This is game over kind of losing move, just about. We don't have time to save this stone. Instead of saving the stone, we have to counterattack. And again, normal main variation line. Black takes this stone. It's Sente because it's also Atari on these two stones. White runs them out. These two stones are still really important. We can't lose them yet. Black takes a double Atari. Now this double Atari to the initial eye doesn't look like it works because it looks like it leads to this Ko. But for all you stronger players who can already see where this is going, this is not a real Ko. When white takes a stone, nothing of black's an Atari, so black actually has an extra move, and white cannot connect, game is over. So, not a real Ko. So instead of taking this stone, white actually has to run out again. At this point, now we start the simplification process. Black takes, white takes, Joseki over. So let's just think about what happened here, right? And again, this goes back to why one of the reasons why I think it's called the Avalanche. I don't think this is, again, historically accurate at all. But in the start of this Joseki, black attaches here with the full intention of taking, or defending, the top, a little bit on the top and the corner. And after all these moves, what black ends up with is this side and none of the top or corner. And so it's sort of like they flipped direction. This is especially apparent, when you compare it to white's move, because white, at the start of the Joseki, looks like white's going in, especially after this move, to take the side and the outside, the side of the board and in the middle. And that's totally not what happens. Oops, too far. Wrong Joseki. Nope. Oh man, lost the tree. There we go. In the end result. So it just collapses into the opposite direction that both players initially play. Let's go through this one more time. Oops, nope. Let's do it from a different direction. And again, if you guys, just like the last video, if you guys have a GoBon or GoBoard or phone app or something you can be practicing on while you're watching this, I would urge you to do that, because this is the only way you're going to learn some of these more complicated sequences. I do hope that through this explanation, though, you're able to understand why each move gets played the way it does. So here, and again, we come on top again. This starts the Small Avalanche proper. Basically no choice now, if both players want an even result. Come out. Hanging connection. Atari. Cut. Take. Atari. Block. Atari. Come out. Atari. Take. Take. And if you can do this in all four corners of the board, on each corner do it the two different directions, you're in good shape. Now, a lot of people, even though black gets to capture 2 stones, white does get to capture 3. Black does come away with Sente here in this, so the person who owned the corner first will come away with Sente. But a lot of pros don't actually play this or avoid it, because there is the feeling that white actually made out very well. And whether or not that's actually true depends on the rest of the board. For instance, if black already has a stone here, let's say this is a white corner, and black already has a stone, something like this, it's already reducing this side, like a third line dig-it-in stone. That makes white expansion a little more difficult. Like this is a great result for black. Like black loves it. However, right? Of course, let's say if maybe this is a black corner over here, and this is a white corner, and they've already, the players have already played out some other Josekis here. Something like this. This may not be such a great result for black, right? Because this thickness is kind of facing the wrong way. Although in this case, actually, this white group is a little bit endangered because this is so strong. Maybe that's not the best example. But you get the idea, right? Black gets really strong on one side, and white gets really strong on the other. So who is that worth more to? It's really hard to say. All right. Let's go through it. Let's go through the original direction again. Actually, that's fine. I want to show you a little bit of those ladder super fighting variations too that you kind of have to at least know a tiny bit about when you play this. Must extend. Black comes here. All right, here we go. So white can extend here, and there's actually other ways for white to make this into a game over mistake. Right? For instance, if white doesn't play this, if white cuts here, this is sort of a well-known Joseki mistake that is immediately punished. Pause the video right now and see if you can figure out how you can punish white for cutting too early while I drink my cup of tea. Did you guys find this secret ladder that doesn't need to be laddered anywhere? This Atari. Ka-dunk, 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 ka-dunk. Kablamo, game over, mistake. That's just game. If you don't play that move. I mean, that's sort of a famous overplay in Joseki. Oh, right, but we're not doing this one. This is the normal, traditional way. But white can play here if white has the ladder. Now, there's a couple variations here for black, and I've tried to, I've also experimented a little bit with this shape and tried to, I don't know, find some other variations that I can't seem to find record of on the internet, at least. I haven't gone through some of the more comprehensive Joseki books. For instance, this move is quite interesting. I think it ends up with a pretty even result, but that's just my own reading. I don't really want to talk about this move and my own research on this Joseki because it's completely unverified by players stronger than me. Maybe at the Go Congress, I'll find a pro and I'll ask about this move and see what they think. And they'll show me why this move is so terrible. But I think this actually results in a pretty even result. It's kind of a cool Tsuji. But again, that's my own research. Don't forget that. Just white out your brain right there. Most normal response for black is here. And if white doesn't have the ladder, this is really painful for white. Because it looks like, this connection, might give these two stones enough liberty, so maybe now we can cut and counterattack. But that's a complete and utter lie, because it just turns into a ladder again. It's a really weird looking ladder. Like you have to play a bunch of weird forcing moves, or weird Ataris, I guess, to start the ladder. But that is just a traditional ladder that comes out of this. So imagine if this is a black corner, or even just there's no stone in that corner, right? The game is over once again. So again, one of the biggest mistakes you can make in this Joseki is playing this move one move too soon. In this case, white usually, whoops, too far, would just have to play here. And then black's choice, actually, this is actually just a really good result for black. If you have white can't stand this ladder, black I think can even play here, or just something to form the connection. And actually black has just enough liberties to capture the corner first. And so white's outside is not nearly enough compensation. So if this is the case, it's like game over, kind of bad. So kind of a problem. If black doesn't have the ladder, if white has this ladder, black instead will usually play something like here and start this huge fight this way. And now at this point, black needs to come back to capture this corner. White can cut here. And I think the best move is this. Though there are some other, just in terms of co-threats and things, I think is here. White can play this in Sente, and then play a move like this, and then black has to either jump or lean, one of these two types of moves. If black can do this, black should probably play here. But this is just some sort of central fight, where we have this white group that's not completely safe, but it can make eyes. This white group is actually not completely safe either. It's already being undercut on one side, plus there's an Atari or a Peep here. They're both pretty annoying to make eye space, but of course, these four black stones are not safe at all either. So, it's just a fight. Black gets a reasonably sized corner with a little bit of Aji in it for white, with a giant fight on the outside. In most of your games, I don't think, especially if you're a Q player watching this, it's actually fairly unlikely for you guys to see this move. I think this is only, I don't think I saw this move until I was at least 5Q or higher. I really don't remember when I first saw it, but I know when I first saw it, it was also just, poop your pants kind of move. You're like, what do I do with this? And so knowing that if you have the ladder, you just play here and you win the game, feels pretty good. If you don't have the ladder, you can do one of these fighting variations. And like I said, I've been experimenting with this kind of move, which I think is pretty cool. But again, I'm still waiting on professional advice, I guess. So, yeah, most likely, if your opponent knows anything about the Small Avalanche, you're probably going to see them there. And that's where you have to know to make this exchange, where you basically take these two white stones and go up these three black stones, right? And again, just to show you one more time, this is the point where white has to cut. Right, forgot what color I was for a second. There we go. Oh, there's one other variation I want to show you. Where is it? Here? Yeah. So there's other variations. Again, this is one of just several of many possibilities when you play the Small Avalanche, and they're all pretty dangerous. But I'll sort of show you one more that black has as possibility. Black can play here, and this is almost a trick move, except that it's good enough to be called a Joseki, I think. White gets tricked actually quite easily, especially in Q games, if white makes this shape. Because this is super bad news for white. Atari, descend. This is actually just a straight up capturing race. You can see that black has 3 liberties here, 4 liberties there, 2 liberties there, but it's basically connected on either side. Because this is Atari Ascente, this group only has 3 liberties as well. But all those groups have more liberties than this big black dumpling. Oh, also this little black triangle here also has 3 liberties. The big black, or not the big black, the big white dumpling only has 2 liberties, right? And so all these little 3 liberty groups effectively win the capturing race. There's nothing white can do about it. There are some ways we can look like it becomes more complicated, but as you can see, it doesn't really work. I guess is this? Yeah, it's not even really a ko. It looks like white can start a ko, but again, if white plays this connection or this connection or anything over here, right? This is still just dead. If white connects here, it's still, we actually didn't gain any liberties, right? White still has 2 liberties on white's turn. So game over kind of mistake. So that's kind of tricky. So the proper move for white to deal with this one, if you get in a Small Avalanche game and your opponent plays this, is actually just here. And as a follow-up, black plays here, and this again threatens the throw-in. And then black actually plays here to come back and capture the corner. This is most normal. If actually white should cut here, I think this is pretty much absolutely necessary. And then black should just come back. We can play this in some sort of sente. We are just in some sort of fighting situation. Again, very similar to the other variation where white extends, where we have some sort of white development over here, or some sort of, we'll just call it a group, some sort of white group here, and then a weak black group in the middle of them, while black has already captured the corner. And so again, this is, it's tough to know who's going to come out ahead here. It is white's move. So even though white looks like white has 2 weak groups, it really only has 1, since white will strengthen one of them immediately. So it's actually a pretty fair fight. This is not the type of situation you want to get yourself into if your opponent has outside stones, right? Again, this is going back to that Small Avalanche mentality that you're only going to play that main line if there's nothing else around. If there's anything else around, you're going to lead to one of the players is going to want to lead the Joseki into these fighting variations. Because you can imagine if white already has a stone here, and let's say it's white's move now, these 3 black stones are under a lot of pressure. Like, I'm not even really sure how they make good shape without helping white build a huge outside influence. So, anyway, is Small Avalanche hard? You betcha. When would you want to play it? Well, I mean, one reason is, you just know you have better reading skills, so you know it's Joseki better than your opponent, and so you're going to basically call them on it, so you can start one of these more complicated variations immediately. That's always a reason. But one of the legitimate reasons to play Avalanche, because again, it's usually white who starts it, right? This is really the starting move of the Avalanche, because again, normally this Joseki just results in this formation. White will start it when white says, this part of the board is important, or I want to fight. If white doesn't think that this part of the board is important, he'll just be happy to pull back here, make some sort of shape, make some sort of base at the top, because, again, the reasoning is, well, if I don't think the side over here is important, well, then the top must be important. There are actually other variations as well. They're possible, but again, basically, after this attachment, you're almost always going to see white play here or play the Avalanche. Those are really the 2 choices. There is Joseki like this, but this is very, very rare. It's also very fun, though. Very, very fun Joseki. So anyway, Avalanche one more time. Let's do it in a different corner. Again, get out your go boards just to practice. Let's say white says this area of the board is important. White is willing to make a wall right here. Right along this line. White is saying, you know what, I can make a box here. And so in order to tell his opponent that he's willing to do that, he starts this Avalanche. And they play this out. Again, really important extension. Really important turn. Again, assuming the standard line and no outside stones, and white doesn't want to have to worry about the ladder. This is most normal. And now we cut. Now that we have this one stone here. Take, Atari, Atari, extend, take, take. Beautiful. And again, like I said, the whole thing is flipped, right? Because we started this Joseki with white saying that this side of the board is important. If you guys remember those triangles, and if you now see that black has all the strength there, obviously white doesn't get the direction he wants. But also, as we point out in this variation, white captures an extra stone more than black, and considering it was black's corner, locally white gets a pretty good result in terms of points and possibly influence as well. So basically, for using that small avalanche to flip the direction so that white doesn't get the proper direction, locally in terms of points, white makes up for it. All right, so hopefully this introduction to the small avalanche didn't scare you, and you're all ready to try it in a game, or at least go practice it 20 times first, just on an empty board, and see if you can pull it off. I think I tried to show you some of the main pitfalls here, but you know, I'm sure you guys will find your own dangers and find magnificent ways to kill yourself that I never would have seen coming. So try it. The only way you're going to get better. All right. Thank you guys for watching. See you next time.